Hey guys, and welcome back. And today we're going to be talking about Andrea Perron. Now, why does that name sound familiar? Well, it's because The Conjuring was based off of Andrea Perron's experiences in the actual Conjuring house. Now, this is an old interview that I did with Andrea Perron back in 2013 with my co-hosts Psychic Seth Michael and Wendy. Something happened and the video got taken down. Back in the Blog Talk Radio days, we used to use copywritten music. I uploaded that to YouTube. It was up for a long time, then it came down, so I thought I'd put it back up because it's an actually pretty good interview. It's all audio, so relax. Put down your phone, turn the volume up, and listen to this interview while you're cleaning or whatever the hell it is you're doing. Let's get into it.
Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to the Mystic Moon Radio Cafe. Thank you for joining us, everybody. This is a show that explores beyond the mystery and fear of what is considered psychic and paranormal phenomenon. Actually, it's what goes beyond. Oh, I'm just so excited about this guest. We go beyond mainstream media outlets. I'm your host, Seth Michael, and extremely excited to be partnered with as well with two awesome co-hosts and the people that make this show possible, Justin and Wendy. Hello, guys.
Hello, Seth.
Hey, guys.
How you doing?
Doing great. As you can tell, I'm very excited.
Woohoo! I think we're all a bit excited.
Tell us why, Justin. Why are we excited?
Oh, because we got a special guest tonight.
Andrea Perron. Andrea made it through events that the movie coming out in July called The Conjuring. If you have not seen the trailer, it'd be a good time to check that out. She has also written the book House of Darkness, House of Light. Tonight we will touch upon the events the movie is based on and then move on to her books and the mystical energies she has experienced throughout her life. If she is willing, we'd love to hear a passage from one of her books, because actually it's going to be a trilogy, as far as I know.
Yes.
What was that?
Yes, it is. And
Hey, guys, sorry, my phone was cutting out.
Wendy actually started reading some.
Yes, I did. I stopped a little bit. It got too late at night, and, that the hackles on my neck kept going up. So I thought, okay, maybe in the morning.
Cannot wait to read it. And we're going to be taking as many questions as from chat as we're able to during the show. As far as callers, we're going to take some. We're going to wait until the last minute so that we can make sure Andrea has a chance to tell us about her amazing journey. So here she is. Andrea, welcome to our show. It's so great to have you on with us, and I know we have a lot to cover. So how about you take us back to where the events have began to impact your life and brought you to where you are now?
Well, hello. First of all, I wanted to thank you all. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yep,
we
sure can.
Great. Oh, all my my Facebook page is lighting up. Oh, they played Witchy Woman. Oh, but you're a white witch. You're a white witch. Oh, I'm loving playing Facebook at the same time I'm doing this. Oh, God. I'll tell you, before I even go anywhere, I have to tell you, 5 years ago, I did not know how to turn a computer on. I did not know what button would actually make the screen have pretty colors on it. And I am about to publish my third book over a computer. So I know. I give myself all the credit in the world for mastering the learning curve. It's been a wild ride. It truly has. Once I got Word down, I was in pretty good shape, but then I figured I was going to have to communicate with other people, too, so I had to learn all these different tricks of the trade, and I have a wonderful SEO administrator who takes care of my web presence. Her name is Margie Mirsky. She lives in Minneapolis, and she said, "Oh, I'm going to have to walk you through this and teach you this." I said, "I don't want to learn more. My brain hurts, And usually, if you whine enough, the squeaky wheel, that whole thing. But she wouldn't tolerate it. She made me learn everything that I had to do to be able to communicate in cyberspace, and now I'm so hooked. Good luck dragging me out of it.
Same here.
Yeah. I got sucked into the vortex, and I'm never leaving. In fact, I found out I'm way more comfortable in cyberspace than I am on planet Earth, so it works out fine for me.
Hey, I'm
okay.
the same way.
You know, isn't it great? I've met some of the most wonderful people. And then, I honest to God, I meet them on Facebook, and I meet them here and there and everywhere. And then when I go and do a book tour, they come to where I am, and I get to meet them in person. It's fabulous.
This has got to be a great ride for you, like just a great adventure in your life.
It really has been, and today, you know, I'm working diligently on getting Volume 3 completed, and I want it to be published. I'm turning it over to the publisher on Monday. And, yeah, I know, and it's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Would you mind telling the audience what you told me in a phone conversation about that it was basically bigger than the Bible? It was originally going to be one. I love that story. It was supposed to be a single manuscript, a single volume, and when I finally decided, I put it out with 13 different publishers on both sides of the aisle, and everybody wanted it, but the trade publishers wanted to hack it and slash it and cut it and turn it into nothing but a series of scary stories, and I said, you know, if it were fiction and you were going to write me a big fat check, that would be so cool. You could do whatever you wanted with it, and that would be fine. But no, this is my family memoir. This is not only my story, it's the story of 7 people, and you don't get to touch a single hair on its head. And so I decided to publish it independently, and I got the deal of the century. It was so wonderful, but I'm not allowed to say that. Anyway. like you know, it's okay. I think only one person is listening.
There you go. So we're good. Yeah, and I know her. She's on Facebook right now.
Don't tell anyone.
Making fun of me. But it was great because when I turned it over to my publisher the first time to take a look at it, they called me and said, "Dear, the only book that's thicker than this is the Bible. We can't publish a book this thick." And the print would be so minuscule that everybody on the planet would need cheaters to read it. So what are we going to do about this? And so voila, instant trilogy. I just found, you know, where it seemed the comfortable place to end and then start again and to do that. And in the beginning of Volume 2, I wrote a letter to my readers as we continued. And on Volume 3, I did the same thing. And I thought that tonight what I would do is read that to you. It's just a short letter to my readers, but for those that are not familiar with the story, it will give you an idea of what it's about, and it will also tell those that are, you know, deeply immersed in Volume 2 right now what's about to come.
Ooh.
So if
that
you'd like,
would be a treat.
I will pull that puppy right up, point and click.
So is that a good place to start, do you think?
Well, actually,
let's say somebody doesn't know exactly what happened.
Okay, well, let me put it into a nutshell. I grew up in probably the most haunted house in America. However, we didn't tell anybody that because 40 years ago, people didn't want to hear it. They didn't want to believe it. They certainly didn't want to know anybody that was living in circumstances like that. And so we kept it under our hats for more than 30 years after we left the house. We bought the house, and my mom found the house in June of 1970, and we purchased it later in the year and then moved in the very beginning, I think the 11th of January of 1971, and then we stayed there for 10 years. And one of the questions that I get most is, what is wrong with you people? You know, because when they hear what we went through, they think, okay, either you're all gluttons for punishment or you just, you know, what is wrong with you people? But there were a lot of reasons that we stayed, many, many reasons. First of all, the entire economy crashed right after we bought the house. And it was for those of you who are old enough, it was the Nixon administration. The war in Vietnam was raging. And
I am not a crook.
Yeah, right. Yes, you are, you SOB. But, and then we had fallen in love with the place, and it was very difficult for 5 little girls that had just been moved into paradise onto a 200-acre farm in Harrisville, Rhode Island, and fell madly in love. And my parents did as well. We moved in there as a completely normal family, but we left as a paranormal family, because once that door is opened, it cannot be closed again. And if you retain all of your cognitive synapses are all snapping right along, and you experience something like that, you never forget it. And we experienced 10 years, all 7 of us, of myriad experiences. To chronicle it took 1,385 pages. And
wow, that's
with leaving a lot out.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Well, it does. It can double as a lethal weapon. You could put it in a bag and whack somebody with it if you were out and about.
I know. I can't even ship it first class when people buy it from me, and they want an inscribed edition. I have to send it media because it's too heavy. First class. So they have to wait an extra day or 2, but that's cool. They're good.
Oh yeah.
No, my readers have been phenomenal, absolutely wonderful. And the thing that, I wrote this book, I wrote this memoir for my family, and I did it not to become rich and famous, not by a long shot. I'm well aware of the statistics. There are only 200 writers in this entire country who actually make a living from writing books. And all the thousands of others that, they just languish out there, and their friends and their family buy them. And so I've been truly blessed, absolutely blessed, that without, doing this entirely and exclusively on my own, and outlining and doing from everything from the original diagram and outline of the story to the finished product, I am responsible for every single page of it. So I went into it knowing sink or swim. I tell my publisher how I want it to look, how I want the pages designed, what text, what font, what style, what cover art, what you name it, anything in this book, my hands are all over it. And they simply do what I ask them to do and are lovely about doing it that way. It hasn't been a struggle. It hasn't been a fight. It just flowed beautifully. And even though the publication end of it has been trouble-free, writing the story, telling the story after all these years has been, I think, to a certain extent cathartic for my family, but it has also been very difficult. And there were lots of nights that I sat here at this desk and said, I can't do this. This is bigger than I am. I cannot do this. And, in the acknowledgments at the end of Volume 3, I acknowledge the spirits as well as the mortal souls that helped me through this, because there were many nights that I pushed myself away from this keyboard and something pushed me back up against the desk. Me, big me in a 40-pound desk chair, moved me back to the desk, and without actually saying it aloud, I knew I was being told to get back to work. That this story was too important. And I knew I had a limited amount of time because, honest to God, I didn't even tell anybody in my family when I began writing this book. It was truly as if a bell went off in my head in August of 2007. And I had a great job that I loved. I lived in Rhode Island. I was the only member of the family that was still in Rhode Island. Everybody else had moved south. And one day I woke up and it was right there in my face. It's time to tell the story. It's time. And I started writing down my own recollections on recipe cards and put them in a little box and started compiling my own memories. And after a while, I I realized that this was going to be huge. And before I even told my family, before I even told my friends, I was basically doing this in secrecy.
What was it? Was it an urge?
It was an urgency. It was like being poked with a cattle prod.
How about your calling or purpose?
I don't know. I think that, as I've gotten into it, I've really felt that in a sense I have fulfilled, at least begun to fulfill my personal destiny, because I knew when I was a child and I was journaling about what was happening in the house that someday I would be the one to tell the story. But before I even informed my family of what I was doing, I got my first call from a Hollywood producer, and as it turned out, Mrs. Warren heard the same bell go off in her head, and she started contacting people about contacting me and our family to get our permission to use our names and likenesses and to tell our story on screen.
I love that term, soul contract. When things just fall into place.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so unbelievable. You're like, how did that happen?
I know. Well, it was that way with buying the house, too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Wendy knows, if she's into the book at all, that Volume 1, the first 60 pages or so, are not at the farm. We're not there yet. It's about our normal life in Cumberland, Rhode Island, which is a bedroom community of Providence. And, we were a normal family, and we lived in a little suburb of Providence, which was a bucolic community, and suddenly all hell broke loose. And for about a year prior to my mother even finding the farm, what was a quiet and a peaceful life turned hellacious, and a series of horrible events occurred within and around our family, which catapulted us to that farm, which forced my mother into making a decision on behalf of our entire family. And she put $500 earnest money down on this farm before my father even knew about it. She emptied the family bank account and left money for bread and milk while he was away on a business trip. And the way that she found the farm, it was as if the cosmos, the whole universe, conspired to fulfill her wish to raise her girls in the country. She wanted a place in the country to get us out of the environment and out of the community that we were in.
Away from that little shit that lived next door to you, too.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Wendy told me about that part.
Be karma. Let there be a hell for him to burn in. I really, I am not, people think I'm so, and I am a good person. I am a truly good person, and I'm proud of who I've evolved into. But that doesn't mean that I don't have regrets in life. And it doesn't mean that I don't. I have to be careful about wishing ill on people, because when I do, bad things happen to them. So I have to be very careful about it. So when I'm particularly angry and have held on for many decades to that anger, I just say, let there be a hell for them to burn in. I'm not taking matters into my own hands here. I'm putting them out where they belong. But
I've heard of that. There's actually a system. I can't remember the name of it, but some people are just natural generators or manifestors, or there's all kinds of different classifications. But I've heard other people say that as soon as they think something, it would happen.
Yeah, I'm like that. People ask me all the time, are you a medium? Are you a psychic? Are you a sensitive? Are you prescient? And I just say all of the above. I don't even begin.
I love that answer. That works with anything.
Yeah. I mean, I can't label what I am. I can't. And my sister, Cindy, came over yesterday. She's like, when are you doing your next interview? I said, well, tomorrow night. And she said, okay, well, listen, if you happen to tell them what you tell people a lot, then could you qualify it? And I said, sure, honey, what are you talking about? And she said, well, you know how you always say that the 10 years that you spent at the farm were the best 10 years of your life? And I said, yeah. And she said, well, I don't want people to think that's true of all of us. And I said, I don't think that they do, honey. I just refer to it myself. And she said, well, you need to let them know that that isn't true of everyone in the family, that because you had the experience that you did there, even though there were some horrendous things that happened, she said, let them know it was the worst 10 years of my life. And you know, it was like...
Sounds like a Dickens, though, the worst and the best.
Yes, and it was, and that's where the title of the books came. I was well into the manuscript, and my mom walked into the parlor. I live with my mom and my sister Christine on a pretty little farm just west of Atlanta, and we have cows and horses as neighbors, which I like so much better than people. And I do, and they're just so gentle and sweet. And so I was working, just working right along on the manuscript, and my mom walked into the parlor and she said, "What are you going to call this? What are you going to give it for a title?" And I said, "I don't know. I hadn't even thought about it yet. I'm only 300 pages in." And she said, "House of Darkness, House of Light." And boom, and I just looked up at her and I was like, "Oh, Mom, that's great." And she just smiled and she said, "It was both." And it was. It was the yin and the yang. It was the evil and the good and the dark and the light and the blessing and the curse. It was all. So I said, "Yes, Cindy, tonight when I tell them that it was the best 10 years of my life, I'll tell them it was the worst 10 years of your life. Will that make you happy, honey?" She's like, "Yeah, that'd be great, thanks." And then off she went. She's so great. Cindy is really, among all of us, Cindy's the one who I think really has the deepest understanding and the greatest gifts. And she, a case in point, Warner Brothers Studios needed some family photographs from me about 9 months ago as they were putting together some notes for the DVD and all of that will come after the release of the film. And I had about 1,000 photographs laid out all over the table because we were choosing photographs for Volume 2. And I had the ones in hand that I wanted to send to the movie studio. And then they got lost in the fray. They got lost in the pile. And Cindy only lives 3 miles down the road, and she often comes over for coffee in the morning. And she'd had them in her hands because I handed them to her and said, "Do you like these? You think these will work?" She said, "Yeah." And then the next morning it was time for me to mail them to California, and I couldn't find the photographs. And I called her up. I said, "Cindy, you didn't take them home with you, did you?" And she's like, No, I left them right there. And I said, "I can't find them." She said, "Well, hold on a minute. I'll send some of my guides down to help you." And Cindy says she's got 7 angels around her all the time, and I don't question it. Not for a second do I question it. And so about 2 minutes later, I was sitting on the sofa just waiting. And all of a sudden, I felt this sparkly, kind of sweet, almost funny presence. And I reached into a pile that had to be 1,000 photographs, and I came out with the 2 photographs that I needed. And I just started to laugh.
By then, it did surprise you, though, I'm sure.
It did, and I said, "Okay, we're all set now. You can go home to Mom. Bye-bye."
Hey, so I'm glad you mentioned guides. I have one of my guides tapping me on the shoulder to suggest to you to go deeper. Let's go deeper.
Mm-hmm.
And to so can you pick out an event or two that really hit home for you that would be considered the dark side, and then you found out the truth under it? For example, we had talked about that your image was shown, wasn't it?
I saw my own image in the house twice.
And then what did you believe that was? What was that for?
Well, I still can't say definitively what it was, but I have my suspicions. And I've told this story before, but my sister Cindy used to see a little girl walking through the house, and when we were compiling notes to put the memoir together, I once said, "How many times did you see her?" And she said, "Thousands." And I said, "All right."
Wow.
Yeah, and I said, is that the one that looked like me? She said, she looked exactly like you, but she was only about 5 years old. Cindy was an infant when I was 5 years old, so she doesn't remember precisely what I looked like, but she'd seen plenty of family photographs of me from that age. And she always insisted that that little girl, the little ghost, looked exactly like me at about 5 years old. And then on my 18th birthday, the weekend of my 18th birthday, I came home from college, and I was cold, very cold, supernatural cold. Once I crossed the threshold and walked into the farmhouse, I sensed it immediately, and I backed up against the fireplace, and my father and my mother and my 4 sisters were having dinner, but I'd eaten on the plane, and all I wanted to do was get warm. And I looked up when my father dropped his fork, and he was staring at me, but he wasn't actually staring directly at me. He was looking off to my right. And he said, Annie, somebody's come to welcome you home. And I couldn't move the right side of my body. It was completely frozen, as if it were a slab of ice, but I was able to move my head, and I turned my head, and I looked directly into my own eyes. And my facial features were identical. It was a duplication of me, only as a much, much older woman dressed in 17th century garb. And she smiled at me, and then she evaporated, and I never saw her again.
So what was your theory on that?
I think that I've probably lived multiple lifetimes in that house, and I don't want to go back and live in that house again. And my next time around, I would truly hope, I pray, that by telling their story, by being honest about them and our experience with them, and by being fair to them in terms of my treatment emotionally and in terms of their behavior in the house, I hope that it liberates me. I hope that it's what sets me free so that I don't have to go spend another lifetime or part of a lifetime in that house, because I believe that our family was, for whatever reason, drawn to live at that house. It's the only explanation for how everything, it was like there was a puzzle of 1,000 pieces that was just lingering in the ether prior to finding that farm. And my mother made her assertion, I want to raise my children in the country. I want a place in the country. And when she made that declaration from her heart, it was as if all the puzzle pieces just fell into place and put themselves together, and 6 months later we were living on a 200-acre estate that was deeded in 1680, and the house as it is now was completed in 1736. But we didn't move in there thinking, ooh, I wonder if this house is haunted. That didn't occur to any of us. We had visited it multiple times before we actually moved in, and none of us had any experiences of any supernatural activity in the house, on the property. But I will tell you this, when we all drove up to that house for the first time after my mother had secured it with the real estate agent, we all knew where we were. We all knew where we were, every one of us. At the time, I was 11 years old. My sister April was 5. And we were like little stepping stones, all 5 of us. And we knew exactly where we were, exactly where we were going. It was
very neat. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but do you think
go ahead. If you don't, you'll never get a question asked. It's me.
Yeah, I told them. So we won't have to do much work. Sit back and relax. We're going to learn a lot.
But I'm wondering if the elderly man that lived there, and I'm sorry, his name is completely eluding me.
Mr. Kenyon.
Mr. Kenyon, yeah, okay. If he somehow held them back or at bay while you all were visiting and making the decision, well, the conscious decision to buy the house and get there.
I don't think so. I think that Mr. Kenyon had a very strong sense that he wanted our family. He loved us, the kids. He loved my parents, and he wanted us to have this beautiful, beautiful home. And the most, I mean, it was paradise, absolutely gorgeous piece of property. And
waiting for you. Holy cow, that just came.
Yeah.
They were waiting for you.
Yeah.
Mhm. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Holy man, it hit me like a tin of bricks.
Yeah.
You'll see that when you read the book, Seth.
He knew.
Oh, jeez, yeah.
He knew that we belonged there. And keep in mind, Mr. Kenyon was the last of one huge extended family that lived and died in that house over the course of 8 generations. We were the first outsiders ever to live in that house from the people who built it, who were the
I think you were supposed
owners.
to help them. The whole, everybody, all the spirits as well that was there. And then, so it seems like a time continuum was there.
Oh, yeah.
As well. It was like bleeding the lines.
Mm-hmm.
Then, now, in the future.
It's a portal. It's a portal cleverly disguised as a farmhouse. And it's not only a portal to the past, it's a portal to the future. And the reason that I know that for a fact is because one night my mother came out to put a fire on the log on the fireplace late at night, and I went into the kitchen through a completely dark dining room, walked the whole length of the house to go get her something to eat at 11 o'clock at night. She was completely drained. She was emaciated. The oppression that she had been living under for probably 3 years at that point had taken a terrible toll on her, and all I wanted to do was feed my mother. And I went into the kitchen, and she heard laughter behind her back, and she turned around, standing on the hearthstone in the at the fireplace, and saw an entire family having a meal in a completely lighted dining room that I had just walked through. The mother was cooking food over a fireplace that had been sealed for well more than a century, and 2 kids were running around. She was telling them to sit down, take their seats on the bench, and 2 men were sitting on the other side of the table, and one of them looked into the parlor and saw my mother, and he gave an elbow to the man beside him and pointed my mother out, and she was the ghost.
Really?
Oh, goodness. Yep.
Did they put that in the movie?
They didn't put anything like that in the movie. And when the
they
screenwriters tried
they toned down.
Stuff, they told them to tone it down. They did, and it still got an R rating. They told them that it was too intense.
That trailer is pretty freaking horrifying, Andrea.
No, it really isn't.
The trailer is. Oh, I see what you're saying compared to what you went through.
Mm-hmm.
So someone is actually dragged off their bed?
Oh, God,
Pulled off
that
the
was
bed.
Nothing. I don't mean to make light of it. I really don't. But, the fact is, this movie's going to blow people's minds. But what I'm telling you is if you really, really want to know everything that happened in that house, the details, you've got to read the books.
Absolutely.
Because they could never possibly cram 10 years of experiences into a 2-hour film. It's just not possible. And I gave them a lot of information to work with. I gave them a timeline of events and all kinds of things, and they ended up fictionalizing some things because, the upper echelon of producers at the studio said, this is just so off the wall, people won't believe it. And so they toned it down. And it still got an R rating, and it really deserved an R rating. It is an adult film, and it doesn't have any gratuitous sex. It has no violence. It has no bad language. It is just, well, let me put it to you
I don't know
this way.
about that violence. They showed the spirit's kind of violent.
No, it really isn't. I mean, when you compare it to so much that's out there right now, it's really not violent. I mean, compared to some of the things that actually happened in the house, it's pretty mild. And, they flew me out to, I met Mrs. Warren again after 40 years. We walked out of adjacent elevators in the hotel lobby. They had put us up in the same hotel, and I just embraced her, and we cried. And, it was like 40 years had passed, and boom, it was a split second. And I know that the Warrens came to help us. They did, and they made some mistakes. And they didn't do it deliberately, but they made some mistakes. They opened up a door they didn't know how to close. And It was
or a fireplace, right?
Well, we opened up the fireplace. My mother said, "I'm going to freeze to death in this house." And we had a whole woodshed. Mr. Kenyon left us with a full woodshed of seasoned hardwood. But we didn't have a fireplace to burn it in because all the fireplaces had been sealed. And it wasn't, and we didn't know why, and he was very vague about that. He didn't give anybody an answer. And when my mother kept saying, I hear sounds, he'd come visit us frequently, and she'd say, I hear sounds in the, coming from the chimney, or coming from the fireplace, and I don't know what it is. And he said, swallows in the chimney, my dear, swallows in the chimney. But he knew. He just didn't want to be perceived as a crazy old man, But we found out within a matter of weeks, we found out from people that lived in the area that there was never a time that they drove past that house at any time of night that every light in that house wasn't on.
Really?
It was lit up like a Christmas tree every night. Every
Did some of them not know they had passed on?
Oh, absolutely. I think that some of them, well, my mom did a lot of historical research on the property, and what she determined and always insisted that they were not just spirits that happened to be passing through, that they were somehow attached to the property, even though she didn't even, we moved in, she didn't even necessarily believe in ghosts per se. She didn't even believe in God. She became a Catholic just so she could get married to my father, but because you had to back in those days. And
was that like the 50s when they got married?
They got married in I was born in 58. They got married in 57.
Okay. Wow.
And
they got right down to it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Don't get me going. 5 kids in 7 years, okay? You do the math. 2 of them are 11 months apart, all right?
Oh, boy.
It's the Catholic way.
They loved each other.
Yep.
That stork was busy.
Yeah, oh, yeah. And I'll tell you what, they had a little raging family in no time at all. But it was very strange to go into a situation where, well, the first day that we moved in, 3 of us saw a full-body apparition the first day that we moved in. And and none of us really wanted to talk about it. And I was a very polite little thing, and I was carrying a box through the dining room, and I saw a man standing over in the corner next to the door, and I said hi, and he didn't respond to me, and I just kept walking. I had stuff to take to the kitchen. But he was staring at Mr. Kenyon, and he had a quirky smile on his face and the sweetest eyes. And it was like he was there to say goodbye to him or to help him somehow or just to support him. I didn't know.
Wow,
but then Cindy walked
amazing.
in a couple of minutes later, and she said, Mom, who's that man in the dining room? And my mom said, what man, Mr. Kenyon? And she said, no, the man in the corner. She said, Donnie, there's nobody else in the dining room. And so Cindy just dropped it, and then Nancy walked in and leaned over to Cindy and said, there was a man in the dining room, and when I walked past him, he disappeared. And then nobody said anything about it for like 4 months after that.
Will one of your siblings not want to talk about this?
Yes, Christine.
I have a feeling about that. They don't want anything to do with it.
I live with Christine.
Okay.
And her little house, her beautiful little farm, Stepping Stone Farm, and her bedroom's 3 feet away from my bedroom, and it took me 3 years to get her to tell me what happened to her in that house. One night after I had basically thrown my hands up in the air and said, well, it's just going to be an incomplete volume. It's going to have everybody's stories except Christine's. And there's nothing I can do about it. She doesn't want to talk about it. And bless her heart, she came out and she sat with me and her dog Libby, and I knew to go put myself in front of the computer. And I did, and I just started typing as fast as she spoke. And I'll tell you what, Christine went through hell in that house. And even though Cindy had the most experiences of everyone, what Christine endured was just terrible. And Cindy, I tried to use Cindy as a bit of a conduit because she lived so close by. And I asked her one night if she would just come over and talk to Chris, because I wasn't making any headway, and I was getting close to a completed manuscript. I needed to include her experiences from her point of view, and it wasn't that she had been excluded from the manuscript, because there were many incidents that happened that included her. So I was either there myself and remembered exactly what happened, or I did some comparative analysis with what Cindy remembered and what April remembered and so on and so forth. So I had Christine represented, but I didn't have her direct recollections. And Cindy came over to the house, and I was just standing quietly in the kitchen because, to tell you the truth, I felt rather dejected, like she wasn't supportive of the project, and all this time and effort and energy and tears and gnashing of teeth had all, gone into this, because my mom said, we tried very hard to bury these memories for 30 years, and when it came time to exhume the dead, it was incredible how remarkably close to the surface it was buried. And Christine didn't want to do it, and Cindy went into her bathroom, and all of a sudden I heard a bang on the door, and I didn't realize what was happening, and I walked over to the door and eavesdropped a little bit, and Christine had grabbed Cindy by the shoulders and kind of planted her up against the door, and she was obviously crying, and she said, "Why did she come to me? Why did she come to me?" And
she's not ready.
Traumatized.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the lines in the book, childhood trauma, the gift that keeps on giving.
You were able to get past it, though.
I loved them. I still do love them. The spirits that were trapped in that house then are trapped in that house now.
Well, I have a feeling not all of them are, though. It feels like a couple, at least one, had crossed. Like when I'm focusing on it, I feel a little bit of lighter spot.
Well, that would be lovely, and I hope that's the case.
Yeah.
I truly do. I hope that by telling their story, that it will light a path for at least some of them.
This might be the exit door, what you're doing.
Oh, I would hope so for their sake. And, my mother just really took exception to the fact that Lorraine Warren came into that house and expressed as much concern for the spirits as she did for the mortal souls living with them. And my mother said, "Well, who are you here to help?" It was a rather tense moment between them that occurred, I think, their second or third visit. And Mrs. Warren said, I'm here to help everyone, because, no one is free until everyone is free.
Yeah.
And she was absolutely right about that. And she would, warn my mother. There was a great deal of consternation between my parents having to deal with this issue. And she would warn my mother not to allow arguments to erupt. She said, when that kind of negative energy is exuded between the two of you, not only does it mortify your children, but it feeds the beast. Don't feed the beast. And it would get very active in the house. And either one of two things would happen. Either the manifestations would come fast and furious, or a manifestation would occur that was so extreme that it would silence them. It was a very strange way to grow up, and it was almost like living a double life. I think I would make an excellent spy. Because, we'd go through, God knows what we'd go through overnight, and then have to go to school the next morning exhausted, and not only get through the school day, but pretend that everything was just fine. And it wasn't. It wasn't fine. In fact, Mr. and Mrs. Warren said for years, for decades, said that the haunting in Harrisville at our home was and these are their words, the most compelling, the most intense, the most disturbing, and the most significant of all of the investigations that they conducted in their entire career.
I'm picturing this, too.
Wow.
Okay, so that is amazing, actually. Because that's even, they did the Amityville. And they said yours was the icing.
Yeah, blew it away.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Holy crap.
So what would be a daily life for you kids?
Well, it depended. It would depend on whatever energies there were unleashed in the house, and there were some very negative energies in the house too. There was Mrs. Warren said that the malignant female entity was Bathsheba Sherman, although we're not certain of that by a long stretch. Bathsheba had a very interesting history. She died in 1885, but she was a young girl when she was in her late teens. She was in charge in that house of an infant, and the infant died, and when its body was examined, they found that a needle had been impaled in the base of its skull, and it had died from convulsions. And
oh, my God.
yeah, and we don't even know if it was her own baby or if she was taking care of someone else's baby. But there was an inquest held in the town of Chepachet, which at the time was the town seat, because Burrillville as a town had not even been incorporated yet. And she was let off the hook during the inquest, a la Lizzie Borden, and she basically said, I don't know how it happened. Whatever happened, it was an accident. But the people, the town folk, the people in the area decided that she'd gotten away with murder, and all kinds of rumors and innuendo and folklore grew up around Bathsheba Sherman, and she was hailed as a witch, and that she had sold her soul to the devil for eternal youth and beauty. Apparently she was a ravishingly beautiful woman, and that after this happened, she started to age dramatically. And interestingly, that happened to my mother as well. My mother moved into that house as, model. My mother was a model. She was, a clothing designer and a model, and she had, a career. She used to go to New York City and model all kinds of different lines of clothing, and she was photographed repeatedly, and, absolutely ravishing beauty. And that house just sucked her dry. It aged her at a dramatic rate. And, she never, even though she's still very beautiful, and she regained, once we left the house, she regained some of her youthful vigor and her look. It had taken so much out of her. And
how did she found the Warrens? How did she find them?
She didn't. We never called anyone or asked anyone for help. And we don't know.
In the movie,
exactly.
I saw her approaching them.
Mm-hmm, yes.
Was that just made up?
Yeah, that's not
true.
Jody
wanted to.
Yeah, well, because I think to tell the whole thing, it just would have been too complicated. So they have my mother approaching them for assistance. And they have my father in the film actually being cooperative, which could not be further from the truth. My father threw the Warrens, punched Ed Warren in the face, took him to the floor, and then threw them out of our house.
Was that a spirit influence, or was that him?
Oh, no, that was him.
Yeah, he withdrew. He withdrew and kind of got real defensive about all of it, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. And the way that my father deals with fear is through anger. If my father feels defensive, or if he feels imposed upon, or if something bad is happening that he can't control, then his normal reaction is to anger. But I'll tell you what, he turned into a monster in that house. And there were some times that he was a lovely, wonderful father. But that always happened when we were away from the house. And when we'd come back home, it was, which daddy are we dealing with now? Because that house had dramatic effects on men. And, people, I get a little self-conscious sometimes when people, in the course of discussing this, and I think I talked to you about this, Seth, before, when people say, well, you're survivors. And at first I was like, well, yeah, but I had to really think about that, and I realized that there were a number of occasions in that house that could have claimed any one of our lives and didn't. And there were many people who were good friends of our family who came to that farm and died bizarre, premature deaths.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. 7 different people that were close friends of ours that died in bizarre ways.
Oh, my goodness.
I know. So it had its effects on us, but it had effects on other people as well. But it also is a wonderful place. I have 2 friends, one who has a great difficulty hearing, and one who has sight problems, who have both been to that farm, and when they walk into that house, their sight and their hearing are restored, and when they leave, the infirmity returns.
That's just amazing.
What's
Yes,
your theory on
amazing.
that? I'd like to know that.
Because it's a multi-dimensional place, and they step into a different dimension where they are absolutely perfect and all of their senses work perfectly.
Now, that's the part of the truth that you wanted to get to.
Yes. Yes.
So how about we take a few questions from chat,
Sure.
and then in the next hour we go in deeper on that.
Right, we got
spiritual
about
aspects.
8 minutes till break. I just want to let you know.
Awesome.
Okay.
So I'm just going to ask everybody to throw some out now because I kind of missed them. Anybody out there that's in chat, why don't you throw out some more?
Jody was asking if the Warrens were invited into the home by your mom or by the family.
Yes, she did invite them once they came. What happened was she had disclosed some things to a friend of hers who went to a seminar, and I think she spoke first with Keith Johnson, and he was just a student at the time. He was only a few years older than I was, and he was a student at Rhode Island College, and he came and brought his group about 6 weeks before the Warrens came, and then he and his group, after they came and had some experiences of their own on the property, which are detailed in Volume 2, then they told the Warrens and brought the Warrens in on what was legitimately their case. And, we didn't think of it as that. They were a bunch of college kids that showed up in a VW van that, wanted to come and check out the house. And my mother was very polite to them, and we trusted Keith immediately. I mean, there was something just godlike about Keith Johnson, and it's still a quality that he possesses. He's just the most pure of heart man you would ever want to meet in your life. And so she let him in, and he had a hellacious experience in that house. And then about 6 weeks later, the Warrens showed up. And then at another point, Keith came back with the Warrens. Keith and his group came back with the Warrens, but the Warrens, being much older and I'm sure perceiving themselves as having much more experience, decided that, this was going to be their case. And so kind of just shunted the whole Pyro group off, which was really it was really unfair. But I'm sure that they just perceived them as college kids that didn't know what they were doing. And the fact is that by the age of 17 or 18, Keith Johnson had already experienced a number of incidents in his life that gave him a great deal of experience, and he knew way more about what he was talking about than his age, would belie. So,
wow. We have another question from, is it okay to interrupt quick?
Oh, please, go right ahead. You have to.
Kimberly,
that's
right. Kimberly, one of our team meetings that I'm on a paranormal team with, she's asking, did any of you feel that the spirits followed you after you left the house?
Yes. Yes, and that was the last thing in the world that my mother wanted. But when and this is in Volume 3, which is soon to be published, but I will give you a hint at it. But we were, it was very difficult to leave the farm. I mean, it was emotional turmoil. Nancy still resents my mother for forcing the sale of it, and my father is sick that we ever parted with that place. He said it's the worst mistake he ever made in his life, and we're a lot of mixed emotions about leaving the farm and leaving the spirits, and it's the only place that I've ever felt to be home to me in my entire life. I've lived in a lot of different places in a lot of different states, and I've traveled a great deal, but to me, that place is home. And I think that it always will be. I've never, ever been any place that felt more like I belonged there than the farm. But we moved to Georgia pretty much en masse. Nancy stayed behind as caretaker of the farm for a few months while the new owners prepared to move in. But the rest of us all moved to Georgia and wanted to make a clean, fresh start in a whole new place and start life anew. And within weeks of moving to our little farm down in Cherokee County, Georgia, my mother had a major incident, and it started with a phone call from Mrs. Warren, and we had not heard from Mrs. Warren in 6 years at that point, because after the whole seance fiasco that happened in the house, they were, obviously very reticent to come back, and they did come back once, but my mother just basically said, no, we're done here. We're done with this.
Did the Warrens mention wanting to throw in the towel after this one?
No, they didn't.
Wow.
Actually. They lectured all over the world about our story and
wow.
Really made it famous without us even really knowing about it being famous. But I'll tell you what, Mrs. Warren called my mother within 2 months of us moving to Georgia, and she offered my mom and dad a boatload of money to tell the story with a ghostwriter, which I always find so hysterical.
That is funny.
And, and wanted to make a film out of the story, and my mother said, oh, God, no. Oh, you. In fact, Mrs. Warren put the ghostwriter on the phone with my mother, and my mother said, you don't want any part of this. You don't want any part of this. You don't know what you're getting into. You don't want to do this. And he said, oh, I'm fascinated. I'm interested. I'm this. And she said, well, I'll have to talk to my husband. And that night, my mother was attacked in the basement of the house. And,
heavens.
And about 100-pound solid oak door was flung onto her body and dislocated her shoulder and gave her a concussion. And that was the night that she had to take matters into her own hands. And the next day, Mrs. Warren called back, and she said, absolutely not. I don't need to discuss this with my husband. The answer is no.
Wowee.
Gotcha.
And that was 1980.
Did you ever befriend any of the children? Kathy in the chat wants to know.
Yes.
Or play with them?
My sister April developed a lovely relationship. It's the thing. It's in volume 2, and it was one of the most heart-wrenching and difficult stories to tell. April still can't talk about it without sobbing. But the little boy was named Oliver Richardson, and interestingly enough, I do believe that I have found a man who was Oliver Richardson in another life, and he lives in England.
Oh, my.
Yeah, and that's a whole nother story that I will save for a whole nother time. But my shout-out to Stephen in England. Identical. He looks identical to him, and when we first met, he started telling me about, a lot of my readers tell me about things that they have experienced in their own lives, but when we met quite inexplicably, and he didn't know who I was, and he didn't know anything about the story, and he detailed, and I mean to tell you detailed, this farmhouse that he'd been dreaming about his entire life, right down to the chimney that came up through the floor in the center of a closet where he used to play, and sitting in a tiny little room that was the eaves off the closet and being scared out of his mind. And I said, does the name Oliver Richardson mean anything to you? And he started to cry. I tell people all the time that, as I mentioned earlier, that it was really the best decade of my life. And I'll tell you why I say that. Because from the age of 12, I knew that there was something beyond our mortal existence. There was no question in my mind. I never had to fear death. I learned very early that how we comport ourselves in this life actually matters. And as I had started to say a little earlier, and I think I got around the subject, but I'll come back to it, is that the people who died in that house either died tragically, died very suddenly, or died by their own hand. And probably 6 of the spirits in that house were suicides. And so before people take their lives, they need to think very seriously about the repercussions which could conceivably come afterward, because I don't think that we get to make that decision.
Say that last part again.
We don't get to make the decision of when we die. We don't get to take our own lives without there being some kind of ramifications, consequences.
I heard some theories about there's at least 7 exits, like a soul contract, and we've already planned. Maybe we'll do it that way. Maybe we'll go that way. What do you think of that theory?
Well, I don't know. I think that all of it is theory. And I think that anyone who is out there saying this is the definitive answer is not only living in bad faith with themselves and lying to themselves, but they're misrepresenting their cause and our greater cause, by saying that they've got the answers, because there are things that I don't think that we're going to know. And if we do know, I think that it will happen when science and technology embrace spirituality and faith and religion, and not really even religion, because I don't believe in religion. I think it's the scourge of the planet. But I think that spirituality is a fundamental aspect of our humanity. And I think that when we get the understanding, it will come through a combination of these energies coming together, and if there are any answers to be had, that's when they will come. And so I introduced the book, Volume 1, saying to the reader, this volume will not provide you any substantive guidance. It will not answer questions. It will pose many more questions than it answers. But the one thing that I can say is that I've been able to live my life free of the fear of death, and knowing that I am a spiritual being and that we are all spiritual beings who are each having our own lessons learned in this life, being graced with this life so that we may evolve spiritually. And that, for me...
You're speaking my language, Andrea.
Yeah, it works for me. And interestingly, this past weekend, I did an event in Atlanta called a big paracon called Through the Veil, and it was a wonderful experience, and I met fabulous people. But I went to Through the Veil with a hypothesis to posit to my followers, my readers, and that was that the veil is an illusion, that there is no veil, that the spirits completely and utterly surround us at all times, and we're the ones who build the wall from childhood, from adults saying, no, you don't have a special friend, no, that's make-believe, that's your imagination, honey, you really didn't see what you think you saw, you didn't hear that, you weren't touched by that, and when you hear that enough as a child, you start to build the wall between yourself and the multiple dimensions that we seem to be able to access. And so that's why children are so much more vulnerable and susceptible to the spirit world, to the positive and to the negative aspects of it. And that was the thing that Mr. and Mrs. Waring were so concerned about, was not my mother and my father, but the 5 of us, because they knew right from the inception, right from the time they crossed that threshold, that there were 5 little girls in jeopardy. And they were right. They were absolutely right. And, I'll be perfectly honest with you, Seth, Wendy, Justin, I will be perfectly honest with you. We told about 95% of the story, and we reserved the other 5% for ourselves to hold personally, because there were things that happened in that house that we will never, ever tell anyone, ever.
Wow.
Are you able to talk about it amongst yourselves at least, to get it out?
Barely. We talk about it in the most vague terms. We talk about it to each other with our eyes.
Got it.
Goodness.
That you probably grew up to the age 24 at the age of 12 to when you moved out.
Yeah. Yeah. It was we all grew up quickly, and April having to leave Oliver behind was probably the most difficult thing that she ever did in her life. And it was heartbreaking to leave them.
Being one of those kids that it never really was squashed for me, and as early as I can remember, it was like when I was in a crib, I experienced spirits all the time. So I can understand a relationship that grows. I had several nannies that Mom never even had to pay for.
Yeah.
Invisible nannies were right there.
Yeah. I know.
So I understand what that's like.
Well, it was at times it was very comforting, and I think and Wendy, now that she's into Volume 1, will start to get a sense of that there are stories which really make you question that there can be a simultaneous presence of good and evil around you. But I want people to know one thing. If you keep your heart open, good always triumphs. It always does. And one of the themes, in fact, the major theme of the book, and I always say this manuscript, this trilogy of books is really essentially a love story, and it's between mortals and immortals. And it was the bond, and that's what they captured in the film, and that's what I give them great credit for, because The Conjuring is nothing that you expect. It's not what you expect. And I showed the first trailer to my mother. Cindy went out to L.A. with me and watched the film, and Mrs. Warren was there with Tony Spera, who is her son-in-law.
Yeah,
and
he runs the museum, right?
Oh yeah, he's a wonderful man and very deeply spiritual man. Truly, he's very gifted in his own right. He was drawn to that family. There's no question. And I don't even know his history with meeting Judy, their daughter, or anything. I don't know, but I do know that he was drawn to that family, and he is inextricably linked to the Warrens, to Ed and Lorraine. And just because Ed is dead doesn't mean Ed's not around all the time.
I always tell the spirits, if I don't believe they're aware of them being passed on, that your body stopped working, but you're living on.
Absolutely.
That's how I explain it.
Well, that's the thing.
That's for loved ones, too. They're still there.
Absolutely still there. And, our bodies are physical vessels that house our spirit and our soul and our mind. And I think that, we're all one collective consciousness, that race consciousness is a very real thing. Thoughts are things. And, we wouldn't be able to manifest anything in our lives that's tangible without thinking about it first.
And it's happening more now. Have you noticed that? With a lot of people.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Finally, dreams are coming true.
Absolutely. There's a great deal that's going on. The Mayans were absolutely right. All that they did really was they chronicled the end of an age, which was the Piscean age, and we have now entered what people for millennia have forecast as the age of Aquarius, the age of enlightenment.
I consider it the magical age.
Oh, it
is the magical age.
I can't tell you. I mean, the physical symptoms that I've had through this process have been just ridiculous, inexplicable, sudden, spike-driven headaches and dizziness.
Are you getting memory loss too?
Well, in the strangest ways, yes. I mean, there's just so many people around the world that are experiencing the same thing. It's literally a vibrational shift which is occurring, and it's occurring with us physically at a subatomic level. And those of us that are the guides for the rest are having nothing compared to what's going to happen to the people that walk around oblivious. I mean, when it hits them upside the head, it's going to be like a sledgehammer.
And I think that's why you and myself and many, many others are here to help with that.
Absolutely. Yes, I really have come to realize that that's part of my role in life. And, you know, I always had some sense of regret that I never had children. But I realize now that I'm birthing the last of a set of triplets into the world that will last far longer. And be a gift to the world, and it has touched so many people. The letters that I get, the heart-wrenching letters that I get from my readers, and they tell me, I'm telling you this story for the first time in my life. I'm telling someone what happened to me.
I think it's beautiful how reachable you are, too.
I answer all of my letters personally, and I will do that as long as I possibly can. I would like to say that I'll always do that, but I can't really predict that because life's getting pretty crazy lately.
I have a feeling, I mean, yeah, logic. This movie's coming out. The books are coming out. You're going to be pretty busy.
Yeah, but I still take the time to answer my letters, because if someone has invested the multiple hours that it takes to read this trilogy and have given their heart and their soul and have taken this journey, gone on this excursion with our family through that decade of time, through the reading of these books, the very least that I can do is to acknowledge them and to listen to them and to interact with them and to help in any conceivable way that I can. It's just a matter of being a conscientious human being.
Mhm. And very
it's the right
admirable.
thing to do.
Mhm.
And I've made wonderful friendships. I've made so many contacts with people that I never would have had the opportunity to meet otherwise. And they charm me, and they delight me, and they thrill me, and it has changed so many people's lives, and that's why I wrote the book. That's why we waited more than 30 years to tell this story, because 30 and 40 years ago, nobody would have believed what they're finding in these pages. And there are many incidents, many episodes that really are quite literally unbelievable and require a leap of faith from my readers, and they give that to me. They believe us, and they extend their hand, and I take their hand and carry them across the bridge into this decade that we spent in this incredible place. And it wasn't just the house. It was the barn, and it was the property itself that is absolutely magical. It really is. It's unlike any other place on this planet. And it was time to tell people that there is such a thing as multidimensional travel, that there is such a thing as spirits that are literally capable of interacting with us if they so choose, that they manifest in their own way, they don't have any sense of time. But I will tell you one thing that's in Volume 3 that is amazing, and that is that in 1996, Cindy and Nancy went back to the farm together, and they had the most incredible experience. And when they walked in, they entered through the woodshed, and the current owner, Norma, gave them, started to give them a tour of the house as it is now, and it's been completely restored to its colonial-era splendor. It's absolutely beautiful. And they were stopped dead in their tracks, and they were touched. And the spirit who stopped them put them in the bubble, what Cindy calls being in the bubble, where you can't really hear what's going on outside of that space, that almost vacuumous space, and both of them were physically touched. Their faces were touched. Their hair was stroked. And she said, "Oh, my God, it's you. You're back."
Hey,
Wow.
listen.
My.
Really
Yes,
quick. Is anybody whispering at all? I'm here. I'm sorry, Andrew. While you were talking, I heard some whispering, and it didn't sound like any of us. Is there anybody around?
It wasn't. In fact, when we were during our break, there was a great deal of chatter on the line, and I knew it wasn't any of you. I knew that you weren't talking over the. Remember, Wendy, I wrote to you. I wrote to Wendy just before we did the broadcast tonight, and
There's
I said,
a tall,
if
thin
I
guy
get,
behind me I don't recognize too.
Yeah, if I told her, I said, if I get cut off, or if there's sometimes if I'm talking about a specific subject that there's some objection to out there, they'll try to drown me out. Yeah. And it's particularly bad on Skype. In fact, I did an interview with a lovely woman named Rita Scott in Ireland last week, and the interference was such that she had to cut out a whole section of our interview because she played it back to her husband, and he said he could hear the voices and he could hear what was being said, and he said, you have to take that out. It will terrify people.
Well,
he wouldn't tell me
is it
what
okay
they
if
said.
we? Yeah. Can you tell us what they said?
He wouldn't tell me. She wouldn't tell me what they said. She just said that she edited it out because it would just absolutely terrify people. And but I don't feel any threat from them at all. In fact, I feel nothing but love from them, and I love them, and I feel
They're
very
very
much
protective.
the way that Mrs. Warren did. I just wanted to help them, but I'll tell you, my uncle Eugene was a priest, and he was one of the Brothers of the Sacred Heart, and he worked and lived for many, many years of his life in the Vatican and worked directly for the Pope. And he would come to the United States every few years and visit family here and in Canada. He was on my father's side of the family. And he came to the farm the first time that he came to the farm. And my father wouldn't divulge anything to him. My father did not want to discuss it. And my mother took Uncle Gene off, and she told him what was happening. And about 6 weeks after he returned to Rome, a beautiful black Mercedes sedan pulled into the yard, and a man, a holy man, stepped out of that car and came to the door, and there was no question. My mother immediately let him in the house. I mean, this man glowed. And he came in. He did not identify himself. He didn't even give her his name, but he was dressed in very formal garb. I mean, very formal. And he asked if he could walk through the house, and she gave him permission to do that. And we all stayed in the parlor. And because the house was so huge and vacuumous, and each floor had its own sounds, each door had its own sounds, we could hear him walking through the house. And he went through the entire farmhouse and came back into the parlor and walked over to my mother and said, "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Perron, this house cannot be cleared." And then he went outside, and he stood outside in the twilight, and he blessed the house from beyond the house, from the yard, and then left. And my father thinks that Uncle Gene sent him from the Vatican, that he was an exorcist.
Wow.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow.
You just got so many interesting, wow.
I've given you 1% of 1%. We could talk for hours and hours and hours, and I still wouldn't scratch the surface of what happened to us in that house.
Some people in the audience are chatting about that they were hearing things too, like Cindy, not so much whispering, but gasping for air.
Yes, that's
Ron
what I
heard
was hearing
something.
too.
Yep. Let's see, what else we got? Whooshing sound from from Wendy.
No, that's inside my ears. I know that.
Kristen said paranormal storm. So I got this guy poking me, and then I heard a lady cackle. Does that make sense to you?
Well, what I hear very frequently is an old woman's voice saying, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry." I hear her frequently. And it doesn't matter how many times I accept her apology, she continues to say it.
So do you think any of them, has it ever been suggested to them to maybe cross? And then when I say that, you know what I heard? Not going to do that.
Mm-hmm. No.
So I just wanted to put it out there to them. They're not ready. I think some of them are waiting for you.
Yes.
They're very protective.
Yes, of all of us.
You're one of theirs.
Yeah. Well, and that makes perfect sense because from as far back as I can remember, I never felt like I really belonged here on this planet. I never did. I have always felt like such a misfit my entire life. And, I just kind of pretend my way through life, but my mom
welcome
says,
to our world.
My mom says, honey, you've only got 1 foot on the planet, and I have to draw you back and pull you back and have you live this life with us because I'm just so afraid you're going to float away. And and I can't help it. I've known my whole life. I've known that I would be the one to tell our story, and I think that that's why I wasn't afraid. I was never, only once was I terrified in that house, and it's because I thought I saw my mother die. And that was the only time during the seance, and all hell broke loose. It was terrible. It was terrible. And Cindy and I both saw it, and she was trembling, shaking uncontrollably. I had my arms wrapped around her, and she was falling to the floor, and I couldn't hold her, and my mother had just been picked up and thrown about 20 feet in the air.
Yeah.
And landed in another room. And because of where we were peeking through, I could not see if my mom was still breathing or not. And we had to sneak upstairs and quietly go through the length of the house and come down the other staircase before I could see that my mom was still, she was not conscious, but that my father was saying she's breathing. He was taking her pulse, and it was a terrible, terrible experience. I will never, ever, in the rest of my life, I can guarantee you, I will never participate in any kind of a seance or any kind of a spiritual gathering like that again. And, to some extent, one of the chapters in the book, I think it's in Volume 2, begins with children are stupid. And it's true. No matter how gifted, no matter how intellectually precocious, no matter what they've got going for them, kids basically still feel that they're immortal because they're still in touch with their own immortality.
Yeah.
And so they think that they are impervious to damage and to harm in this world. And it's not until they grow up and they realize that life is very fragile that they begin to take it seriously and show it the respect that it deserves. And Mrs. Warren warned my family repeatedly not to allow a Ouija board into the house, not to allow tarot cards into the house.
Oh, gosh, you had
nothing,
enough.
Nothing that had
to do with
the dark arts, nothing. And my sister's friend, Katie, snuck a Ouija board into the house. And
good one, Katie.
Yep, and whatever came never left.
Jody said that she heard a little girl that's about 6.
Yes.
Jody Foster's actually going to be joining us soon.
Oh, Jody's a doll baby. Jody
she is.
Wonderful. Oh, my God, I just love her to pieces.
I can't wait.
Love her to pieces.
Oh,
She's
I'm
so
glad you
good
know
and
her,
kind
too.
and pure of heart woman. She really is. She's an angel on earth. She is.
Just like you, she's very reachable.
Well, she is, and we haven't met in person yet, but we have struck up an absolutely lovely relationship online.
Oh.
And I've learned a lot about her. She's learned a lot about me. And interestingly, we seem to know a lot about each other without having met yet. It's odd. She will verify that there's a spiritual kinship between us.
Mm-hmm.
And I also want
I agree.
I want to acknowledge, I know that my friend Emily Coleman is, even if she's being very quiet, which is so unlike her, in the chat box.
Some can't get in the chat.
Yeah, well, she's listening, and she knows.
Hi, Emily. We love you.
Yeah, we do love you. She's the best, and it's the same thing with her. It was just an instant bond. And I'll tell you another thing too. My dear friend, and who is my SEO administrator, but so much more to this project, Margie Mirsky, is also a deeply gifted spiritualist. And, I hesitate to put a label on her. She's like me. You really can't put a label on Margie because she's kind of everything omnipresent like God. But she...
Hi, Margie.
She is...
Hi, Margie.
She's a very, very
I
special
always love that
woman.
name.
Yeah, Margie Mirsky. She's a rockin' chick, let me tell you. And she's responsible for my web presence. I have a web presence that is second to none. Anybody wants to know anything about me, she already put it out 5 years ago in preparation for what was coming, because she knew what was coming. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No doubt.
You know,
so
I'm surrounded.
We got about...
Go ahead, honey. You're allowed to speak. You are. I mean, you are the producer. Go ahead.
Well, I was about to
You're the
say,
man.
we got about 28 minutes left. Just let me know when you guys want to start taking calls. I know you guys said you wanted to take a couple calls
go right
towards the last
ahead.
half hour. So anybody that would like to call in, the number is 646-716-7748.
If we didn't get you... Sorry. Can you say that again? I interrupted.
The number is 646-716-7748 if you would like to call into the show. We will start taking callers for the last half hour. Until we get some callers, just go ahead and start talking, and then I'll just interrupt you again when we get a caller.
Well, better mortal than immortal interruptions, honestly. If you'd like me to, though, I will. This might be a good time for me to read my short introduction to Volume 3.
Oh, sure.
Yes, let's do it.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, this is an exclusive, kids. Nobody's heard this. My publisher hasn't even seen this yet.
Woo-hoo.
So let me just clear my dry throat here, and I'm having serious allergy issues in Georgia that I never had before. I don't know what's going on.
Okay.
Yes, okay. And so this is my opening letter from the author to my readers in Volume 3. As we approach the end of this journey together, it is important to note one thing. It is merely a culmination of the story as told in written word. Truth be told, the saga continues. Subsequent visits to the farm have yielded some fascinating encounters over the decades since our departure. Moments of recognition have occurred, no doubt about it. As long as there is an intermingling of mortal and immortal souls, and those who experience it remained earthbound long enough to tell it, this story has no end. In the end, so is my beginning. So said T.S. Eliot, as well as myriad poets, philosophers, historians, metaphysicians, theologians, and scientists have throughout recorded history. In a variety of ways, we've spent millennia attempting to discern the nature of our existence. It is a noble cause. Still, no one has yet to offer empirical evidence, definitive proof of the origin of a soul we sense within. Instead, we remain charged with the power of conjecture, sheer speculation, our only ally, on an eternal quest for answers to our age-old questions. It is as if it is being deliberately kept secret, a mystery, to keep our minds quick and nimble, ever expanding with the search. Arriving at this point in the journey was no easy feat. The last leap of faith is the most difficult to take, where the chasm is at its widest. It will require your blind trust, a belief that our family is telling you the truth. Extricating ourselves from the farm required a quantum leap of faith, all our own. Transformation is a conceptual word, and it is easier said than done. Muddled emotions of many souls were involved in this transition. Tears were shed, resentments were born and harbored as a result of the decision to go away, far, far away from home. It was painful, awkward, and disastrous for a family that would never again be together under one roof. That was the end of it. Nancy remained behind, and by the time she arrived in Georgia to reunite, her sisters, with the onset of adulthood, had already dispersed into the ether of the greater Atlanta metropolitan area. It was all suddenly separate and distinct, no longer a unified front from which to do battle. The war was over, and the troops went to new places of their own, finding their way in the dark, marching toward the light of a different life. This volume is dedicated to my 4 lovely sisters. Though decades have passed, we all remain united in heart, having shared a childhood wrought with peril, the ties that bind. Each a force to be reckoned with, though there are occasional skirmishes within the ranks. We're the first line of defense when it comes to protecting one another. Cindy will dare an adversary to cross that line, while Christine stands ground behind her with a double dog dare. Disputes still arise, but on one point we agree. Someday the greatest minds will unite and emerge in a loving embrace. Science will find its magical spark in faith and spirituality, switching on the light for all to see. In the interim, if you're afraid of the dark, poised upon the precipice of this chasm, here, take my hand. From deep within an ancient memory, I know the way home.
Oh, golly.
Kristen in chat says she feels your pain and your relief. Ron is sending light and strength to you, and tears of his own, and love and light. You are courageous with your words. So very strong and painful, but he feels it's for a massive, positive preparation.
Thank you all. It was hard to get through that. I never read that out loud before.
I just think you're so brave just to tell your story, you know. It's so strong-willed, and you just want to get your story out, and to just, I'm just honored to hear it. I'm gonna buy your book and read it. It sounds amazing, you know.
Kimberly says we understand you, if that helps.
I do believe that, and I feel
Robin
it.
says,
I feel the embrace from all of you.
She's surrounding, everyone's surrounding you, Robin said. And Jody said, you're a woman who's bringing us together in spirit. We all very much on soul level appreciate what you're doing, and we're with you.
Thank you. It makes it easier on the journey not to have to travel it alone.
So much support in this chat room. Nikki said, you did very well, dear. Thank you for sharing. Many blessings and much love.
Thank you. It means a lot to me. It does. It means so much to me. And it's this kind of love and encouragement and support that I have received from moment one around this. It has changed my life. It has changed my life because everyone that is saying what they're saying and all the emotion that I feel from them, you know, they might not have even been alive 30 or 40 years ago. I don't know what ages they are, and I have young people that read these books, and then I have very old people that read these books, and everywhere in between. But I think almost everyone would agree that 30 to 40 years ago, the world was not ready for this story.
Oh, definitely
not. It wasn't.
It was a very different time.
It's healing for you to read it out loud. I think that's true for everyone hearing this. It speaks to the soul. And I heard behind me, not sure if this is one of yours, but I heard a spirit say, she's speaking for us.
I try to. And, and when I say I love them, I always loved them. We shared space with them. It was their house. Way before we even existed. It was their home. And, when you think about two young parents moving in with, a bevy of 5 rambunctious little tomboys, of course we spurred it up. Of course we did. But I think that it was really meant to be. I mean, as Einstein said, either everything is a miracle or nothing is a miracle. Well, I come down on the side of everything is a miracle. everything. A blade of grass is a miracle to me. I am Walt Whitman, you know. I am Henry David Thoreau. I am Ralph Waldo Emerson. I mean, I was raised on the metaphysicians. That's where my heart and my soul and my intellect was drawn to the metaphysical poets and the writers of the 18th century who wrapped their mind around the fact that we live in a holy place, that we are all spirit and that we are all guided, and worship the earth because she is God. Worship your own mind because it is God manifesting. Worship your soul because, you know, we are all a manifestation of soul. And I can only speak for myself. I know that this is what works for me. But living in that house for 10 years, 10 glorious years, and then going back repeatedly. I have been back to that house so many times. I mean, just the universe brought the new owners to me 25 years ago. Yep. And I had not been back to the house from when we had left. And the woman who had just bought the house walked in the front door of my restaurant and happened to have gone to school with my business partner. And she walked up to the counter and she said, "Gail, is that you? Oh, my God, I can't believe that's you. That's Gail?" And she walked up to her and she said, "Oh, you'll never believe it. I just bought the most fabulous haunted house up on Round Top Road in Harrisville, Rhode Island." Well, you know, I knew exactly what house she was talking about. And I dumped the entire lunch crowd on my partners and just made a beeline for this woman. And we have been fast friends ever since. And she has opened that home to me, and I have been there a multitude of times. Wow. She said, "If you just want to come walk the land, just come. Just come." Wow. And I have many.
That was one of the questions in the chat, too. Mm-hmm. Who owned it next? Hey, how about we take a few calls?
Okay, let's do it.
All right.
I mean, I'll let you know as soon as we get a couple callers. Yeah.
Everybody,
you know what? I mean,
maybe
nobody's got the guts to call in. I mean, I don't know.
I don't think it's that. Maybe maybe she's answering all their questions.
Well, I will tell you one thing. If this is a lot for anybody to wrap their mind around, and I totally get that. And, you know, in the same way, I never disrespect the skeptics, because if you haven't experienced something like this, I wouldn't expect you to just, you know, wholeheartedly believe it. And that makes sense to me. And the skeptics are the ones that push us ever forward in terms of revealing and extrapolating meaning from experiences such as this. And so, I give them all the credit in the world, and I can't say that I wouldn't be one of them had I not experienced what I did, because I'm basically a very scientifically minded woman. And as was my very pragmatic parents, both Virgos, but I'll tell you, my mother entered that house as an atheist, and she left as a deeply spiritual woman and has no qualms about asking God for help. And I'll tell you, there were many times in that house when we had to beg for help, and it was there, and it came. And Mrs. Warren told us when she first came and we were still younger, she said, "I want to teach this to you girls." And she made us repeat it over and over and over. "In the name of Jesus Christ, go back to where you came from. Leave us in peace." Well, we memorized that line, but it didn't work for us because it was just a memorized set of words. There was no meaning behind it. But when you're under siege and you're scared out of your mind and you say, "Dear God, please help me. Please somebody come and help me and make this stop," and you mean it from the core of your being, there will be an instantaneous answer.
Totally agreed. No matter what you say.
Yeah.
It's that belief. It's that faith and trust.
Yes.
Intent.
Yeah. And so I know that no matter what evil lurked in that house and tried to impact us in negative ways, I know that we were protected and we were guarded and we were loved, and that when it came right down to it, we would be rescued.
Kimberly, go ahead.
Is there still activity in the house today Does
Yes.
anyone know? There is?
Yes. Every time I walk in the house, something goes flying.
Does it happen when you're not there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
the
okay.
thing is that the couple that bought the house 25 years ago, they knew they're both very intellectual people, extremely well educated, but also both very spiritual people, and they bought the house knowing that it was haunted. And before they even walked into that house, they made it clear, they made it known, this is your house. We are the caretakers. We come in peace. We don't want to disturb you. We know you're here. And so consequently, the female spirit that tormented my mother and who we always assumed targeted her specifically because she was threatened. Her position as mistress of the house was threatened. And she made that very, very clear to my mother. In fact, she came with all the spirits one night and surrounded her in bed, and they were all carrying burning torches. And my mother was absolutely terrified out of her mind, a mother of 5 little girls that were sleeping right above her head. And, you're in a tinderbox house that's 250 years old. What's a mother's greatest fear? What fear greater than fire? And they told her the one malignant spirit stepped forward out of the crowd and said to her, "'Twas mistress once before ye came, and mistress here will be again."
Wow.
We'll drive ye out with fiery broom, we'll drive ye mad with death and gloom. It's all in the book. It took my mother being hypnotized to remember every line of it, although she remembered most of it, and she said she will never undergo another hypnotism, that was just reliving it all over again. She'll never go
those
through
can
that
be pretty
again.
intense depending on the hypnotherapist.
Yeah.
Kimberly had my thing crashed, but I remember that Kimberly had asked if you believe that you would return after you had passed on to the house.
I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't ever want to be that cold again. I want to fulfill my obligation or whatever it is, whether it's my obligation, my responsibility, my destiny. I don't care what word gets attached to it. I hope that by telling their tale, by telling it honestly and thoughtfully and conscientiously, that I will be released from any obligation that has pulled me repeatedly back into that house.
In the afterlife as well, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I have no qualms about going to the house now. I love to go to the house. I'll never spend another night in it.
Right.
I've been repeatedly invited to spend the night in the house, and I always graciously decline.
Been there, done that, bought the T-shirt.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'll tell you what, another thing that you won't even believe, but I'm going to tell you anyway.
I believe all of this.
Do you? Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so if the house came back on the market and you were able to buy it, would you? That was another question in chat.
Yes,
you would.
I would. Yes,
cool.
I would, because and I'm hoping to accomplish that task, because it really does.
Coming, Andrea.
It belongs in our family, and it belongs as a museum, and it should be a place where serious-minded people who do serious investigation would have an opportunity to do so. And, now it's a private residence, and, that's not a possibility. But I would really love to see the house opened to humanity, where it was. I know that it's protected and it's guarded and it's, a beautiful, beautiful place. And for people to just be able to walk through it and feel the energy of that house would be life-changing, life-altering for people. So when that time comes, I'll make those arrangements, but I won't live in it.
Marika Paprika has joined us and said, sorry she's late. I guess you know her?
No, I don't.
Beautiful name.
Yeah. I don't think that I do.
Maybe we'll get to know her.
Well,
Okay.
that'd be great.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I love this theory, and I believe this wholeheartedly, too, that we're all infinite beings of love, and people forget sometimes the connectivity that's there for us at any point.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, and I think that that's one of my roles in life. I mean, you should have seen the faces on the people when I did my presentation at Through the Veil, and I looked them straight in the eyes, and I said, the veil is the illusion. And it was like, boom, there it is. No, it was a quantum leap of faith was taken by many that day, and they realized that we're the ones that create the walls. The walls don't really exist.
Exactly. Yeah, it was funny how life turned in a way.
Well, it is. Now, people say, and the word, we make up, this is our language, and we make up our own language as we go along. And one of the words that human beings have made up is coincidence. There is no such thing as coincidence. It's just a way for us to explain away the inexplicable, the otherwise inexplicable.
Hey, guys, Seth, we got about 8 minutes left. We're going to have to actually start wrapping up soon.
Okay.
Okay. I know
we have
that
some
you
announcements to make.
Right, absolutely. So I just wanted to let you know we got about 8 minutes, and that's all I got.
Okay.
Well, that's okay. I can fill that up as though it were 8 seconds.
Okay, well, let me do these quick announcements.
Okay, you go ahead and do your thing, honey.
We have listeners. We want to thank you for joining us again, but we'll thank you again at the end of the show. I'm just really grateful for everyone that's joined us in chat and that isn't in chat. And the amazing shows and events that are coming up, there's some that you may be interested in. This Sunday at 12:30 Pacific, 2:30 Central, and that's 3 p.m. Eastern, I have a show called Into the Light with Seth Michael on Nets. This Sunday, we're going to be featuring a family who made the paranormal into normal in their home. So we're going to cover how to possibly help your children understand and accept the special abilities they may exhibit and how to support them in it. The link is livestream.com in the search bar, Into the Light with Seth Michael, or you can click on go on to my Facebook page, Into the Light with Seth Michael, and there's a link right there. There's also an amazing weekend-long event that's coming up that I'm involved in. It's so exciting. It's called The Quest. Embrace Your Awakening. That's starting in Dallas on September 6th, 7th, and 8th. So if you want to find more information on that, how you can qualify for free admission and a free reading, visit our website at thequest.com. And for more details on these or more that you might be interested or personal reading, my website is sethmichael.wix.com. Or I'm on Facebook, Seth Michael, Psychic Medium and Spiritual Advisor, or White Light Paranormal Insight. Justin's got something to announce as well.
I do?
About Wednesday.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It's very exciting.
I'm totally spacing out right now because I'm listening to Seth. It's okay. I do a show every Wednesday.
It's my charming personality, Justin.
That's right. I do a show every Wednesday called Shadow Radio Wednesdays, where we have different, we talk about different paranormal groups, different topics. We also have people guest star on occasionally. Quite recently, we had Ross Ellison on the show. But you can catch us every Wednesday, and you can check us out on Facebook. We have a Facebook page. I'll post it in the chat box for Shadow Radio Wednesdays. Oh, you already did it. Awesome.
I love that word, awesome. It fits with everything for me. And I want to thank Soul Distraction Elsa Faith for helping us with the theme song, and we're going to end with one of her songs, Down. And thank you to the Vandies for giving us permission to play their wonderful song, Bright Lights, both of which can be found on Facebook. So, Andrea, you have been amazing.
Oh, thank you, darling. You guys have been great, too. And like you said, it really was like sitting around a table and just chatting, and that's really the most comfortable environment for me. You've made it very warm and welcoming, and I would be very happy to come back anytime you ask me to.
Even if you're extremely famous,
Yes.
Will you make time for us?
Yes. Well, even though I'm only a little famous right now, and I know that there's a lot more coming, I will always make time for all of you because you've been wonderful and so encouraging, so supportive, and just absolutely delightful. I mean, when I was on the phone originally doing my pre-get to meet Seth thing about a few weeks ago, my mother said, "Oh my God, are you in love with the guy? You're going to marry him?" I mean, she's so funny. I said, "No, honey, you know I'm already spoken for. What are you talking about?" You know, but then again, that's my mother's sense of humor. When I showed her the first trailer that freaks everybody out, she said to me, "I would not have been caught dead in that skirt." that was her reaction to it.
That's great. I love your mom.
Yeah, she's a rockin' chick, let me tell you.
Well, we're going to end it out. Thank you again, everyone, for listening.
Well, I hope you enjoy that throwback interview I did back in the day with my old co-hosts. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you think about the interview. And compare it to interviews that are happening now with Andrea Perron. Has her story changed? Let me know. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. And we'll see you guys next time.